Visa and Mastercard have agreed to a $30 billion settlement that's going to affect everyday consumers. Yes, you heard me right, a whopping $30 billion. Now, this is not the same case that actually happened pretty recently around December when they actually closed on it. This is not the same one that is based on actual businesses that are affected by Visa and Mastercard overcharging all types of merchant fees. This is a completely different antitrust case. Now, this is huge because this is going to affect everyday Americans more than you can ever imagine. Have you ever walked into a store and you're actually going to purchase something and you saw a small little sign that said there will be a 3% charge on all credit card transactions? And you're like, well, what? Why do I have to pay that? Well, because this becomes very expensive for everyday merchants, small business owners, anyone that has to actually process a Visa or MasterCard. They have been getting screwed over by Visa and MasterCard. And what consumers don't understand either is specific credit cards are being affected even more, because if you have a high tier credit card that you're actually getting really high rewards for, then guess what? Those cards are actually charging the actual merchant more money to process those specific cards. And that's why you hear people say, oh, nobody accepts American Express. Nobody wants to use American Express, because some smaller merchants won't actually accept them because it's too expensive for them to process those fees. And this was happening not just with American Express, but with Visa cards and MasterCards also. So how is this going to affect you, the consumer? Are you going to get any payout out of this? Or are the merchants going to get paid out? Or the actual credit card processors, or small businesses or big businesses? Who's going to get any of this money is the real big question, right? What you're going to see is they are going to lower the swipe fees for Visa and MasterCard by $30 billion over the next 5 years once the actual settlement has been approved by the actual court. And you may be sitting there saying, why does this even matter, Mike? This is not a big deal. This is a waste of my time. Actually, it's not. It's a huge deal for you, everyday consumers. So there are other actual YouTubers out there that are trying to talk about this, but they're not giving you the proper information. So let me break it down to you the easiest way that I possibly can. So the current swipe rates that actually started on December 31st of 2023 are going to stay active for the next 5 years. So we're not going to see any major changes in the actual first 5 years. Of course, if the settlement gets actually approved and there are no appeals, because if there are any appeals, this can actually make this last a little bit longer than anybody wants it to. You're going to hear other creators out there stating that maybe consumers are going to save money. Well, in fact, I personally don't believe that anybody's going to save any money here except for the actual merchants, which are basically the businesses that you're going to go shop at. I'm going to read it exactly as it's stated in the report, because the settlement gives merchants the ability to impose surcharges on customers depending on what type of Visa or MasterCard they use. And those surcharges would likely hit cardholders who get rewards such as cash back and airline miles, since those carry a higher swipe fee. See, a lot of people don't understand that people like myself that get all these crazy reward points, reward miles, or cash back, they're actually causing the business to pay higher processing fees when you use a specific reward credit card. That's crazy, right? But on the other hand, some cardholders could get discounts on goods and services, since merchants would be able to make deals with banks to get them to use what they consider to be a preferred credit card. As an example, if you walk into a department store or even a gas station and it'll have a little sign, our preferred credit card of use is going to be the Chase Sapphire Preferred, and you'll get 25% off of your actual transaction. I mean, it's not going to be 25%, but I mean, it could be, but I'm just saying that's a good example. You could potentially get discounted rates for using specific credit cards. Now, they're not saying which ones yet, but understand that there's going to be what I call a monopoly on certain merchants telling you, well, if you have the American Express Platinum or the American Express Gold, will give you a deeper discount. And I'm not picking on these specific, American Express or Chase for any specific reason. I'm just saying those are top tier credit cards with great reward systems and ecosystems that are going to be possibly affected. Now, it could be a positive thing, or it could turn into a negative thing where you're going to be forced to use specific credit cards if you want to save at the register. But there's more to this story, because the government saw what was going on and they took action for the first time, I guess you could say. But separate from the settlement, a bipartisan bipartisan group of lawmakers in the House and the Senate are pushing for a set of new laws aimed at curbing Visa and Mastercard's dominance. And if the proposal passes, the largest credit card issuers, which includes JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, and Citibank, would have to work with 2 credit card processors instead of 1. And the 2 processors they work with can't be both Visa and Mastercard. So the government is stepping in to try to break this up, as they usually try to, and they're never successful. So we'll see exactly how this plays out and if it's actually going to work, if the House and the Senate can get it actually approved. Listen, this is a lot of information to take in, but I feel like it's very important that you hear about this, because this is totally going to affect you anywhere you go and depending on what credit card you're going to be using in the future. And for those of you who are saying, well, I don't use a credit card, I just use my debit card. Well, guess what? Some of your debit cards actually have a Visa logo, and Mastercard, actually all of them do. So you're going to be affected also. They could say that we only want to use Bank of America debit cards or Chase Bank debit cards for you to get an actual discount, or they may charge you more, because remember, the merchant is going to be able to set the actual fees now. As opposed to Visa and Mastercard were the ones that were controlling this, kind of creating a monopoly, and this is why they actually got sued. And what a lot of creators are not talking about is the fact that if you have paid attention, a lot of big banks are starting to pull back on specific rewards, because is this going to cost those banks more money? They're going to lose money on the back end, or are they going to gain more money? We're seeing a lot of huge changes with a lot of high tier rewards cards here in the last, I would say, 3 to 6 months, and nobody's batting an eye. I felt like something was going on in the background that was causing all of these banks to change all of their actual rewards and get rid of some things that are just not going to make them money. And this right here, this massive settlement, is going to have a big effect on all big top tier credit card reward systems. As this huge story continues to develop, I'm going to keep you updated so you know exactly what's going on and you get real information from a real trusted source. So I hope you enjoyed this video. We covered a lot on this crazy new settlement with Visa and Mastercard. Make sure that you watch the next video, because it is about the actual other settlement with Visa and Mastercard that affected a lot of businesses, small and large. Now, if you felt that I brought you some value in this video, make sure that you don't forget and subscribe to increase your credit score.